That's enough from you guys. I know we're a little bit behind. And we are also live now, 5 minutes late. Sorry about that. Welcome to the VT Roundtable, guys. We're live right now. I am Brett Anderson, joined by familiar faces. We got Sean Borman in the bottom left-hand corner. We got Sam Neumann, bottom right-hand corner. Drew right there in the middle, and BJ up top, rocking the crazy stash. Why don't you tell us about that, BJ? What's going on there?
Well, I had to shave, right? My dad yelled at me, and my dad rocks a mustache, so I decided that he would probably be okay with this. So we're gonna test drive the handlebar mustache today, and we'll see if it lives till tomorrow.
I think you're doing it well. I don't know if the other guys agree with me, but I think you're pulling it off right now.
Ditka.
Yeah, man. All right, so this is a special episode. We didn't have any Vikings games to talk about as the Vikings, got to enjoy their bye week this past weekend. However, there's still a lot to discuss. We wanted to take this opportunity to do a mid-season recap show of the first 8 games. We're going to be giving out awards, talking about where the Vikings stand currently in the NFL landscape, and we're gonna revisit some of our predictions we made in an earlier roundtable show, as well as make some bold predictions for the rest of the season. It's going to be fun. As I've said a couple times, we are live right now, so thank you for joining us. If you're on YouTube right now watching live, feel free to participate in the chat, ask questions, provide input. BJ is going to be monitoring that and may feed some of it in during the show, try to incorporate it here and there. Okay, guys, before we get into the recap, wanted to start with a little news. So some big news today. We all kind of expected it, but multiple outlets reporting that Teddy is going to be activated tomorrow, Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. It's not known for sure whose spot he's going to take at this point yet, but there is some people that suspect it'll probably be Bradford being moved to IR to make some room for him. Most of the speculation right now, as far as I've seen, is that he's going to be playing backup to Case Keenum, his first week back active on the roster. I think, in fact, I saw Chris Mortensen reported that Case Keenum will be the starter versus the Redskins. So real quick before we get into kind of the recap, since this is the biggest piece of news, I know we've talked about it a lot on the show. Wanted to see what your guys' opinions were on this and whether or not you thought it was the right call to make Keenum the starter away at Washington this upcoming weekend. Let's start off with Sam. Sam, go ahead and unmute, because I know you said before the show that this was the first time you felt yourself, what was the word you used, like being happy about Bridgewater or something? And I know I've
being excited. Okay,
being excited. And I know I've been working on you in private.
You have.
That doesn't sound great, but in our own chats that we've had personally, I've been kind of working on your stance on Teddy Bridgewater, and I feel like you've maybe turned a corner a little bit. Is that kind of what I'm hearing now? Like where are you at? You're excited? What's going on?
Yeah, you and I talk offline more than people know, and
Right.
I believe that's what you were alluding to with that comment. Very clear. It was a beautiful and spiritual moment for me today. I was driving this afternoon. I don't know what happened, but I just think I let the excitement finally inside of my soul, and I got excited for the return of Teddy Bridgewater today. More excited, actually, the first time I've been excited since he got hurt. I just generally don't, if a player's not on the field, if a player's not ready to play, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about him, not staying up at night refreshing Instagram, hoping to see something. So now that it's real, now that it looks like he's going to be getting activated, I'm excited, number one, to have what should be very, very good depth at the quarterback position, and number two, to have Teddy Bridgewater back, a guy we all fell in love with, a guy that I think has obviously the most potential of any of these Vikings quarterbacks, and the guy that is set up to be the long-term starter. Looking forward to it. Can't wait for the second half. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the knee is. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a Brandon Roy situation where the excitement is very short-lived, and we find out the injury is worse than we thought or as bad as we thought. We'll see what happens. Can't wait to watch it, though, in these next 8 games.
So who here thinks making Keenum the starter at Washington this weekend is the correct decision for the Vikings to make? Sam and Sean. All right, Sean, why is it BJ, no. Why is it the correct decision, Sean?
Because we've won 4 games in a row, basically. I wouldn't mess with, the team camaraderie we've got going on right now, the win streak. Why mess with it? If the team is winning, that's what you want.
Do you attribute those wins to Case Keenum?
You can't attribute all the wins to him. There's been plenty of points left out on the board. I think we've all seen that. But, like I said, we're winning. Why change that? I mean,
okay. Do you
I have trouble with those people who say it's more than that when all you want to see your team do is win.
Drew, BJ, do you guys disagree with that, or I'm basically trying to start a fight to read this situation.
I disagree.
Okay, BJ, why do you disagree?
Not like in like a vehement way or a visceral way per Mike Kano on the Vikings territory comment section. But,
shout out to Mike.
I think that you can't really go wrong or go right in this type of situation if you're Mike Zimmer, Pat Shurmur, Rick Spielman, whoever's ultimately going to have the final call here. I don't know. But Case Keenum has been great, but Sam said it himself earlier. He has the greatest potential on this team to win more games, and he's going to get thrown in there at some point. It's why not have it happen sooner rather than later? Get those, the rust off. Let him get acclimated to being a starting quarterback once again, and put the Vikings into position to possibly make a Super Bowl run. I just think that he gives, ultimately speaking, if you want to win the Super Bowl, Teddy Bridgewater gives you the best chance to win games moving forward, and then of course in the postseason as well. So I think it's time to get him in there, assuming he's ready to go. And every report, across the nation believes that he is.
How many games do you think, because I agree with you, and I think that's my main point is that I don't trust Case Keenum to win us a Super Bowl or take us far in the playoffs. So I think one of my biggest points right now is you don't have a lot to lose by making the switch to Bridgewater if the team has deemed him healthy. And so how late is too late to where you're too close to the playoffs, and then you make the change to Bridgewater because Keenum is still average or maybe even underperforming by that point, and now Teddy hasn't had enough time to kind of get his feet underneath him before he's pushed into being the starting quarterback in a playoff game potentially. Do you think he needs at least 2-3 games before he's pushed into a playoff type situation?
I feel like that's something we're never going to know. There's no way to effectively evaluate that as, I guess, 5 dudes that are outside of the organization. And even if you are in the organization, there's still no way to really know how he'll respond in an actual game situation. So from what we know, he's been in the meetings with the offense and the quarterbacks and the offensive coordinator and everything. So understanding the offense isn't the issue from what I understand and from where, what we know about what he's been doing the last 14 months. But I don't know what Sam's doing right now. But point is, I think responding to actual game situations, getting hit, we'll never really know how he reacts to that until we see it. And then from there, I think we can start to make some judgments as to how long it'll take before he's fully back.
Sam, I'm very distracted by all of the different faces you're making right now.
Yeah.
Is there
well, he said he didn't know. I was just adjusting the light. I wasn't.
But then you made like a face like you smelled something really.
No,
really...
that's because I was reacting to Drew's comment. We're all good.
Well, react with it with words and not expressions. So you like stuck up your nose like you.
You were reacting to what I said.
Yes, about how you didn't know what I was doing. All the content of your Vikings stuff was A-okay.
Oh, okay.
That is not what I got from what you were doing.
So. Drew, I guess one of you guys can answer this. What is the downside to starting Teddy Bridgewater this week if he's ready to go?
That's the wrong question to ask, in my opinion.
Why is that the wrong question to ask?
Because the reason they're not starting him is because he's not ready to go, in my opinion.
I guess that's. I was going to say that's your opinion, and you said it was your opinion, but we don't know. We don't know that that's their reason at all. I mean,
no, but I'm assuming it is, and we have to trust them because we have no idea how healthy he is, and they have some idea.
I want to ask you guys this then. Is this similar to the situation we saw when Teddy came into the league with Matt Castle being the starting quarterback? Like, is this one of those situations where Keenum needs to screw up in order for Bridgewater to come in, or are they easing Bridgewater back in? Because I don't know the answer to that question. I have an opinion on what they should do, but what they're trying to do, I don't know. Obviously, remember we saw Bridgewater make his debut as a result of Castle getting hurt. And at that point, the Vikings were kind of sending us similar signals. He's going to play when he's ready, that type of a thing. So are we in that same type of situation right now where Keenum is, quote, the starter, and Bridgewater is going to come in relief if he struggles as a starter, or are they really just gearing him up and getting him ready to go?
Well, I think Sam was alluding to health as the issue right now, not
right.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I wasn't pushing back on Sam's opinion. I'm asking an entirely different question.
Okay, because my opinion, my guess on things is that the health is not the issue, and that it's simply getting him up to speed, getting him back into game. Mentality, game mode, I guess. I think that's what they're trying to hurdle over right now, and it's tough to replace a guy who has led the team to 4 straight wins. It's just it's tough to do.
That's what I think the biggest issue is. I don't even think it's getting him up to game speed or getting him ready to go. I truly believe that Teddy is ready to go right now, and that's me trying to remove my bias as much as possible. But look, I don't think another week is going to make him more ready to go than he is right now. I mean, the dude's been. I don't. None of us know anything. I mean, we've all been adding the caveat, in my opinion, to every statement we've been making. So none of us really know anything. But I mean, like,
well, what do you base that on then?
Just his involvement with the team. I've said this multiple times, but people act like he's been off by himself in Florida during this entire process. You know what I mean? Like, he's been working with the team throughout the offseason. He's been working with receivers privately throughout the offseason.
I get it. Don't you think that doing that in a game situation with the full 11 is a lot different?
Of course, but how do you get him in a game situation?
Well, I think that's what they're doing. I mean, I think starting him as a backup and having him practice with the teams. That way you're at least dressed, you're at least there on game days. And then if you need to go in, that's my assumption. That's why they're going to have him back up. I mean, if you need to go in, you can go in.
It just feels very reactionary to me. Like waiting for something to go wrong with Keenum, which I hate to say, but I do think will happen. I think he's played average, and when we start to see tougher competition, which we're going to see in the next few weeks, that his average QB play isn't going to do it for us. So I just hate this, let's wait for Keenum to lose the job instead of looking ahead and saying, do we really see Keenum as a guy that can take this team far into the playoffs?
Well, the next question then is what warrants replacing him? We will never... The line that he has to cross is going to be different for everybody. Because I mean, there's been games this year where, especially I think the last couple first halves, the Ravens game and the Browns game in the first half, I think he was pretty not great in either one. So I think simply the way he played in those 2 first halves, to me, would warrant replacing him. If you have Teddy Bridgewater as another option,
I think it's going to require a pick.
I see. I think the fans are going to be more involved in this than we think. Because, so the Vikings are going on the road to FedEx Field this weekend, right? So this weekend makes sense for Case Keenum to still be starting. It's going into a hostile environment. It's, in Sean and I guess Sam's opinion, you continue with what's been working. It makes sense. I understand the reason to play Case Keenum in Washington. Next week, you come back home, and I believe that's the game against the LA Rams. If Case Keenum has a first quarter like he did against Cleveland... at home against the LA Rams, arguably the top other contender.
Those Teddy chants will be unreal.
Those Teddy chants they're going to come, and they're going to be loud as, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be very loud in there, and I think that eventually, if you're Mike Zimmer, if you're Pat Shurmur, you have to be like, all right, Keenum is struggling. We've seen this before. Let's give them what they want. They're the ones buying the tickets. At some point, I think Rick Spielman's going to be like, look, he is still the franchise quarterback. It's time to get him in there. So I guess my point here is don't underestimate the value that fans will have in making this decision ultimately.
And that's what I meant by I think it's going to take an interception. I know that probably sounded like a really simplistic take, but I agree with you, BJ. Like the fans are going to play a role in this, and I think as soon as he throws an interception, I think it's my bad. Well, I silenced my phone, but the damn watch was still on. I forgot about the watch. So
oh, look at me! I have an Apple Watch. Ooh.
And no, it's not. It's not even an Apple Watch.
No,
so
he would never own Apple products.
You're right about that, Sam.
What do you got, a Bing watch over there? What's going on?
It's a nice. Nice Android watch.
Ah.
But, anyway,
Nerd.
Second viruses?
No. Damn it! No, I completely forgot what I was saying. I guess I was just saying. I think it's going to take an interception for the fans to start those Teddy chants. And then I think that's when you see him on the field. Go ahead, Sam. Let's wrap this topic up.
I think they're going to replace him regardless. I think they have the luxury of easing him back in because the team's winning, so it's not as urgent as it would be if they were losing. And I think since they have that luxury, they're using it.
I have one more question for you guys. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I just have two things to say about the subject before we move on. First of all, I've already discussed this with CKA second. Him and I have already decided that it's going to be 2 straight losses. That's the cutoff point for Keenum. If he has 2 straight losses, he's done. But
it's
I
way
get
less
it.
than that.
If we lose this next game at the Redskins, we could see him at home against the Rams, like BJ had said. But also, don't get me wrong, this is the most excited I've been personally for a Vikings mid-season return since Randy Moss came back in the trade in 2010.
Yeah. That worked out well.
I can't wait for Teddy to come back. Well, I didn't, but hopefully this one goes better.
All right.
Hopefully.
No, those.
I have one more thing to add because we're going to keep this topic could go on forever and ever.
But the whole roundtable. Let's do it.
Go.
Okay. So we've seen some of this before on Twitter and whatnot, but there are people that are. It seems like they're annoyed. They're annoyed at Teddy's return or something. But here's the thing: if you don't think Teddy is a good starting quarterback, if you think he's average or below average, that's fine because there are reasons to believe that. I think there are valid reasons to believe that. Mm-hmm. But simply, the Minnesota Vikings went 11-5 in 2015 and won the NFC North with Teddy Bridgewater as a starting quarterback, with a worse defense, with a way worse offensive line, with way worse weapons at wide receiver and tight end, and with probably a way, at least less versatile backfield. So now you add in Teddy Bridgewater, even at that level of play, to the 2017 team. You should expect better than 11-5, and better than an NFC North title, and better than a field goal away from a playoff win. Right? I mean, if everything around Teddy Bridgewater is better, like significantly better, then I feel like adding 2015 Bridgewater, even if he doesn't improve or isn't any better, the team as a whole is significantly better. So I don't know. I feel like if you're upset about anything, well, you shouldn't be upset about anything because Teddy's return is only good for this team.
Right? Yeah, everything's awesome. The only part of that I disagree with is that they are better now at tight end. I believe they are the same at tight end as they were in 2015. That's it.
Okay, Sam.
Everything else was right.
Okay,
but
Sam.
The second part of that, we don't know if we're getting 2015 Teddy. We don't know if we're getting 2015 Teddy.
And part of this is we have to determine if we're getting 2015 Teddy for the long-term outlook of this team at the position.
But why?
Factor.
One thing I want to know is why. Why can't we find out the hard way with Teddy too? If we can find out the hard way with Keenum, like as we've been talking about, he has the job until he screws up. Why can't we find out the hard way with Teddy as well?
Wait, so are you saying that's why you think Teddy should be put in immediately?
I'm just saying, like, if your argument is basically to say, like, give Keenum a chance until he screws up, why not give Teddy a chance until he screws up? I mean, whose team was this first?
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
And I tend to agree because like Keenum is never gonna he's not gonna be the franchise quarterback of this team. Period. It's not gonna happen. So I don't think you have a lot to lose by risking it with Teddy immediately if he's 100% ready to go. I don't think you have a lot to lose with risking him immediately. And if it doesn't work out, you reinstall Keenum. He's already a backup quarterback. That's his role. He understands his role on this team. I don't know.
That's kind of, I understand. Like I'm with you on that point. I'm just saying. I understand both sides here. I understand the Teddy train, and I definitely understand why Keenum should be starting as well. But I'm just basically what I'm making with this point is that you have to be consistent with your argument. And if your argument is essentially let this good thing keep rolling until the guy screws up, well, then you have to be able to accept that people are going to say, all right, well, we don't want this good, like we don't want to screw up, period. So we want to put in our, the guy that we think is going to be better and wait till he screws up instead. Yeah. So I get it. I get both sides here, and I really don't think the Vikings can go wrong. If Keenum continues to play at the level he has, good. If you put Bridgewater in, and even if he's a little bit worse than he was a couple of years ago, probably still good because of how good this defense is and how solid the running game has been as of late. Now, the real question mark, and I imagine this is something that we'll be getting to sooner rather than later, is does the increase in difficulty on the schedule really impact your quarterback decision-making, I guess? If you really think that this schedule is going to get that much harder, it makes the most sense to put in the best player. So I keep coming back to Teddy Bridgewater. That's just my opinion. I don't know anything special, but the route always leads back to Teddy Bridgewater for me.
Can I ask you guys something? Might be a stupid question.
Yes.
It is a stupid question, or yes, I can ask you?
You may ask.
It's probably a stupid question.
It probably is a stupid question. Because I meant to ask it last show. Is it crazy to think that the best case scenario for Case Keenum is that he doesn't play another game this year?
No.
No,
long term. Because
you made it for him
because he's already made his money, right?
Right, yeah.
As a backup quarterback, he's going to get paid somewhere else. So I wonder for him, if he plays the next 2 games and has bad games and has to be replaced by Bridgewater, how much that hurts his pocketbook at the end of the season.
It's a solid take. I mean, he'll probably get paid regardless.
Fire take.
Yeah.
Like starting money.
All right. Well, we're going to end that topic with my fire take. All right. So let's talk about, we're going to jump into our midseason review stuff. So I wanted to start off talking about the rest of the NFL landscape and kind of where the Vikings fall. I want to ask you guys, what teams are better than the Vikings right now in the NFC? And then maybe if that goes a little short and we want to expand it, we can talk about what teams are better in the NFL. Just going to run through, there's this awesome post on Reddit, the NFL subreddit every week. That's like a NFL power rankings post where they basically average out across all the different news outlets what the power rankings are. So I'm going to give you those average power rankings. I think that spans like 20, 30 different sites. So number 1, the Eagles. Number 2, the Patriots. Number 3, the Steelers. Number 4, the Rams. Number 5, the Saints. Number 6, the Chiefs. Number 7, the Vikings.
Saints.
Number 8, the Cowboys. Number 9, Panthers. Number 10, Jaguars. I'll start with you, Sam, since you had a comment there.
Well, just the Saints. I thought that was way too high. I think definitely better than the Vikings, the NFC, are the Eagles and the Rams. And maybe I'm being prisoner of the moment. I wonder if the Lions aren't. And I will leave you with that thought.
All right, Drew.
Okay.
That's a hell of a cliffhanger.
The thing is, I can't really debate that because the Lions did beat the Vikings. So I guess I'm not going to argue that, but I don't agree with it. But I will say the Eagles are the only team that is substantially better at this point than the Vikings. I think I'm not buying into the Rams yet, and maybe I should, but I can't trust this turnaround by Jared Goff, even though obviously the coaching staff and the scheme's way better for him, but I can't trust it yet. I can't.
Okay, Sean, what do you think?
First of all, I agree with Drew. I think the Eagles are the one lone team that I would put ahead of the Vikings. But Sam, the Lions, really? Like, talk about a team like the Packers that if you get rid of their quarterback, do you know who their backup quarterback is?
I do not. Nope.
I looked it up.
Wait, you don't know who the Packers' backup quarterback is?
No, the Lions.
It's got to still be Dan Orlovsky, right?
Dan Orlovsky.
It's something named Jake Rudock.
Oh, Rudock. He's real good.
You get rid of Sam or Matthew Stafford, I don't think they're anything.
No, I agree. And if
Sean wants to put a bounty on Matt Stafford.
All right. So look, so I got a quote from BJ because I went back and watched some previous shows in anticipation for this show. Stop that, BJ. He says, we were talking about being the deepest team in the NFC North, and he says, you talk about what happens to the Packers if their quarterback goes down. Talk about what happens to the Lions if their quarterback goes down. So I just wanted to bring that up because I feel like it was kind of, you were kind of anticipating that possibly happening, and that the Vikings were better set up to deal with that sort of thing.
Of course. I still maintain that point, and I think that Sean actually raises a good point, though I think Sam's makes a little bit more sense because I don't want to predict that Matthew Stafford's going to get hurt, and like Drew said, the Lions have beaten the Vikings already, and they've beaten them 3 out of the 3 times over the last year. So basically for me with the Lions, the only reason that I'm okay with that take, Sam, is because until the Vikings prove otherwise, you know, they are the superior team. The Vikings haven't – if they go to Ford Field and beat them on Thanksgiving – I'll shut up. But the Lions right now, they own the Vikings the last year, so I'm okay with that take. Philadelphia is really, really good. LA is really good, but all of these teams in the NFC, Saints included, they're 6-2, by the way. I think the Vikings can compete with any of these teams right now, even with Case Keenum. I'm not saying that they beat all of these teams, but I think they can certainly compete and try to win the game at the end with all of these players, which, again, leads me back to Teddy Bridgewater because how good has he been in the 2-minute drill? So at the end of the day, I don't think the Vikings are that far off of the top of the power rankings right now. But it just mattered. We just need to see more consistency from the quarterback, whether that's Case Keenum or Teddy Bridgewater. I don't care.
How egregious is it to put the Saints above the Vikings in this list?
I don't like it.
Very.
It's dumb just for the same reason that we're arguing right now. You can't, like, I wouldn't argue that the Vikings are better than the Steelers because the Vikings lost to the Steelers. You know what I'm saying? Right. So if I'm a Saints fan, I'm not going to argue with the Vikings fan.
Struggling with the Lions take that Sam had. Like,
right.
Because on its face, it seems like, no way. And then you start thinking about it, you're like, well, maybe. And I'd just say, until proven otherwise, Matthew Stafford plays for the Lions. It's like, you take Tom Brady off the Patriots, things are going to change a little bit.
But we lost Cook in that game too, right?
Yeah, no, that was a weird game, totally. I think it was a game the Vikings
and granted, the Vikings have been fine without Cook, with McKinnon and Murray. But I feel like losing him mid-game throws your game plan a little bit, and all right. So do you guys feel like we should expand this out to the NFL, or should we just move on from this topic?
I just want to say one more thing about the Lions. You guys are totally right. Until we beat them, it's a good point. We are technically not a better team, but we are. We just have to beat them.
Big game.
I like that take. That I'm fine with that because I think you guys can all agree with this. I think our audience would probably agree with this too, that you feel better than the Lions right now, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You feel like your team is more complete, that you guys can do, that the Vikings are able to do more things.
The Lions' schedule down the stretch here is incredibly soft.
Right.
Incredibly soft.
So you don't want to count them out.
They're a pretty complete team.
Right. They've got good players in their back end. They've got good defensive tackles that rush the passer. They can do a lot of good things, but the Vikings definitely look better on paper right now. Mm-hmm. I think, in my opinion. But until proven otherwise, I'm okay with the Lions are better.
Real quick, because we talked about, if I may, Brett, I'm sorry. Do the Eagles feel a little fraudulent to anyone, or after the Denver game, is that out the window?
I don't think they're as good as they look right now, and I'm not entirely 100% in on Carson Wentz either.
It's time to buy in.
I think it's time to buy in, but when it comes postseason time, what kind of postseason quarterback is Carson Wentz? We don't necessarily know that yet. Maybe he's a guy, he hasn't really been playing under the lights, so to speak, his entire career. Obviously, when you get to Philadelphia, it's a little bit of a different situation. But with Carson Wentz, he's been kind of the motor behind that team. Obviously, their defense is very good as well, and the receivers have been playing astronomically better with him at Q. But don't you want to see what Carson Wentz does in the postseason first? We saw what happened with Tony Romo, his first postseason appearance. He fell apart. What kind of playoff quarterback is this guy? And I think that until you have that question answered, you can't completely count out the Vikings, especially if Teddy Bridgewater is coming back, because we have an idea of what type of postseason quarterback he is.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I just want to say really quick in regards to the Lions and their schedule. So obviously the Vikings are 6-2. The Lions are 4-4 right now. The Lions' next 2 games are the Browns and the Bears. Our next 2 games, both losable games, the Redskins and the Rams. So in 2 weeks, we could easily find ourselves in a position second behind the Lions. And then last point is that on that power ranking list I was referencing before, the Lions are, 6 or 7 spots below the Vikings right now at number 13. So just wanted to add those little tidbits before we move on. All right, let's talk about record predictions. I think it was episode 23. We kind of did our bold predictions. We talked about the Vikings records. And we also talked about how far we thought they were going to go this season, or how far we thought they were going to go into the playoffs, or whether or not they'd make the playoffs at all. So I want to start there. I'm basically going to go around and ask you guys for your record predictions. When I do that, I'm going to also cite your prediction before the season. I think I have all of them. If not, one of you guys go ahead and run to VT and help me out, just in case I look for that record prediction article, just in case I can't pull it up here. But anyway, I'm going to start with BJ because I know I have his. So BJ, before the season, your record prediction was 10-6, and you said that they are out of the wild card. So I think you said they were going to the wild card game, but they would lose in the wild card game, and they would not make it to the Super Bowl. So go ahead and give us your record prediction. I want to know your losses and who those losses are coming from, and then how far you think they're going to go at this point this season.
Well, honestly, I kind of stand by what I said at the beginning of the season here. You know, looking at this Vikings schedule, this is something that Drew and I talked about on one of the most recent About the Labor podcasts, is that the Vikings basically need to play 500 football from here on out to make the postseason, right? That's going to put them at 10-6. And looking at the schedule moving forward here, I think that 4-4 is a very strong possibility. You go to FedEx Field and play the Redskins next week, then you come home to play the Rams, then you go to Ford Field to play the Lions, and you're at the Falcons, at the Panthers. You play the Bengals at home, at Lambeau, and you play the Bears. So I think 4-4 is very realistic here. If you let's say the Vikings lose to the Rams, Falcons, Panthers, and I don't know, how about the Redskins next week? 10-6 seems reasonable to me still. And I think that, with the Vikings playing very well, I'm willing to push them beyond the wild card round at this point, but I'm definitely not going to say they're a lock to get a bye right now based off of that schedule moving forward. I'm more confident than I was at the beginning of the season, but I still think 10-6 is the most reasonable expectation to have.
So 10-6, just in case we revisit this after the season, 10-6, and the divisional round is your...
I'll say the divisional round.
Okay. All right. I kind of wanted to... so you said you're expecting a loss at the Panthers?
I'm just saying
not seeing that one.
Hypothetically speaking, I think that those are 4 games the Vikings could lose. At Redskins, at Falcons, at Panthers, and Rams at home, playing at home. I think those are probably the 4 most likely games that they could lose. I'm not putting a loss on December 31st against the Bears out of territory. I think that could happen. I don't really expect it, but I just see 4-4 making the most sense for the Vikings over the course of the rest of their schedule.
I don't agree that you lose those 4 games and that you get past the wild card round, because at that point you really haven't beaten a team this season that's a contending team. If you lose to those 4 teams, I guess outside of the Saints in the first game of the year. So if you lose to the Redskins, the Rams, the Falcons, the Panthers, those are the best teams remaining on our schedule. I don't see how you get to the wild card and get past. I would feel very I'd be pretty low on this team headed into the playoffs if that were the situation. Because
I think that the skull scale, as Drew would say, might drop a little bit if you lose to some good teams from here on out. But I'm just trying to be realistic and just looking at these matchups from afar. Obviously, a lot can change. If Cam Newton or Matt Ryan goes down, I think my predictions obviously change a ton. And based off the injuries so far this year, I'm not going to put that past happening here. But I'm just saying, realistically speaking, playing in a difficult environment in Atlanta or Carolina, that's a position where the Vikings will not likely be favored, in my opinion. So that's kind of what I go back to.
Yep. Okay. All right, Sean, let's go to you, man. Let's. You know what? I don't think you were on that episode. So does anyone have Sean's record prediction? I know you had.
I know it.
Wait, hold on. Let me see here. Okay, what is it? Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
It's 9-7.
Okay, 9-7 is your prediction. All right, so go ahead and give us your second half of the season record prediction and how far you think they're going this year.
I'm going to stick with what I had. I thought I was on that episode, but maybe not. I have us going 9-7 this year. Still, I have us winning at the Redskins and losing 4 in a row. But
that'd suck.
But we are still going to make the playoffs because the Packers are what they are this year, and the Lions, as always, are choke artists. So that is another reason I'm not really too concerned about that. So 9-7, Teddy comes in. at some point during that 4-game losing streak, and we make a run, we win the playoffs, or we win the Super Bowl. That was my prediction. That was my prediction to start the year, and I'm sticking to it.
So your prediction is we go in as a wild card team, losing 4 straight games, and then we win the Super Bowl?
No, we win 2 of the last 3 games.
Right. Okay.
So do the Vikings win the division, or do they?
Yes.
They win the division. Okay.
Yes.
So they get a home playoff game and make a run.
Correct.
I could see it.
With Teddy.
That'd be sick. I'm not gonna lie.
All right.
I'm in.
All right, Sam. What you got?
Well, I'm looking at the schedule. My prediction was 10-6. I'm not sure there's another 4 losses out there. I could see the Redskins and the Rams both being losses. That could make sense. I'm not saying they will be, but I really think the Vikings win at the Lions on Thanksgiving. Something just tells me something's got to give in that series between those 2 teams. Falcons, I could see a loss. I'm not convinced about it. And then Panthers, I really feel strongly that that's a win just because of the way Mike Zimmer has owned Cam Newton these last few times they played.
I pulled that up while BJ was talking about the Panthers loss. So the Cam Newton is 1-3 versus the Vikings. 81 completions, under 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, passer rating of 90. So I do agree that we've kind of had Cam Newton's number.
Yeah. So I think I would change my prediction. I'd add 1 more win and make it 11-5. Conveniently, that makes it match the preseason prediction of Adam Warwis, and we all know he's basically right about everything. So that right there, good a reason as any to me. 11-5.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. Did I got distracted for a second? Did you give your how far they go?
Oh. They will go to the NFC Championship game and lose.
All right. Do you have a guess on who they lose to?
No. The Lions. I'm kidding.
A Blair Walsh field goal?
Oh, that would be terrible. But no, that will never happen.
All right. Drew, go ahead. Do you still have to leave, by the way, or are you sticking around this whole thing?
I don't know.
Just ditch whatever you had planned.
I got intramural hoops. It's delayed, so we're good.
All right.
But I think I was 9-7 before the season, maybe 8-8. I think I was 9-7.
Someone verify that.
9-7. I got it right.
9-7. Thanks, Sam.
Okay. So I was 9-7. I'm changing it to 11-5. I think a loss to Washington this week will happen, and then I have wins against the Rams and the Lions. And then losses to the Panthers and Falcons, and then wins the rest of the way. Cincinnati, Green Bay, and Chicago to get 11-5, and that still could be actually a first-round bye. Looking at the NFC right now, I think it's very possible that earns a first-round bye. But I would say the Vikings are probably a 3 seed there, get a home playoff win, and then from there they would move on to probably at this point play at Los Angeles. Which I think the Vikings can win that game as well. So I'm with Sam in that NFC Championship would be the as far as the Vikings get, and then they'll lose there.
You guys are just afraid to say it, man.
If you can get a road game at LA that deep in the playoffs, that is a pretty soft, just from a road stadium perspective, that's a pretty nice matchup.
Yeah.
True.
Man, I'm a little disappointed in you guys, except for Sean.
Why?
Because
Super Bowl? What's yours?
All right, so let me break down mine for you. The only I have 2 losses on the rest of the schedule, and that's at the Redskins, and then I think we see Teddy installed against the Rams at home. We win that game, and then we lose at the Lions, and then we don't lose another game headed into the playoffs. I think we beat the Falcons. I think we beat the Panthers. I think we beat the Bengals, the Packers, and the Bears.
See, 3-2 over the next 5 games, I think will get the Vikings a first-round bye.
Very nice.
So
those last 3 games are very winnable. That would get 12-4, which should be.
Yeah, so that's what I have us at 12-4. What was my
9-7.
Coward. 9-7. Yeah, man. And you know what? I went back and read it too, and it was so funny about how much I read into the preseason. I shouldn't have allowed myself to do it. I did it anyway. I knew it was stupid at the time. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it, man. I am predicting at this point Super Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm in Minnesota. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it's a win because why not, right? Like, come on.
Why not?
Why not? I mean, okay.
Why not, he says.
I know there's a million reasons to say why. Okay, you're right.
Don't ask why not then.
There are a lot of reasons why not. However,
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to allow the hope to consume me and then be crushed immensely when it happens. But it feels good right now.
That's what we do.
To be honest with you guys, man, I honestly feel like, and I don't usually feel this way about a lot of things like destiny or anything like that. But I honestly have been on this Teddy Bridgewater comes back, and I've been saying this for a long time on this show. About Teddy Bridgewater coming back to this team and carrying this team and surprising everybody. I just feel like there's something more this season. I feel like it's destiny. I'm sure I'll ultimately end up having my soul crushed for saying this, but there it is. I'm not afraid.
I feel the same way, Brett. Feel the same way.
All right.
The 30 for 30 on that's going to be fun when that happens.
On my emotional collapse, or just on the Vikings.
The Brett Anderson 30 for 30.
If your prediction happens, the 30 for 30 would be really cool.
So
I just got goosebumps. Stop it.
This is why when someone was talking about before, people on Twitter get annoyed about the Teddy Bridgewater lovers because Teddy Bridgewater is their god. I believe that's what Brett just said. It's like,
that's not what I said.
But this time, this guy, he's taking us to the promised land. Fate, destiny, hallelujah.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that wrong?
No, I love it. I'm all in.
No, you don't. You hate it.
No, you've swayed me. You've been swaying me the last few weeks in our personal little meetings or whatever you were saying, and I'm in. I'm excited. You've excited me.
All right. Next, we're going to be talking about awards. So
don't use too much emotion when introducing the next segment, Brett.
Well, I know, but like I feel like I feel like I'm
next
kind of.
We're going to be talking about awards.
I was on a high, and then you guys brought me down by like
Bueller.
So
Bueller.
Yeah.
Fry.
Awards. Let's talk about some awards, baby. Let's go. We're going to hand out some midseason awards right now to the Minnesota Vikings. I gave you guys a list before the show of different awards. So we're going to start off with offensive MVP. I'm going to start at the upper right-hand side of the table with BJ, and we are going to make our way around. Go.
I said Riley Reef on the podcast. I'm going to stick with that. Dude has allowed 0 sacks so far. He's had the greatest impact from last season in terms of filling a position that was a major issue for the Vikings. The term is most valuable player, not best player, and he has certainly been the Vikings' most valuable player, in my opinion, on offense.
Yep, love it. Drew?
I think Riley Reef has also been the best player. So I will pick him because I think he's been most valuable and the best player. He's played in every game. He hasn't allowed a sack. I think he easily deserves it.
Sam?
It's very convincing. I could definitely go with Riley Reef. I could see the argument for that. I will say Adam Thielen because of he's been, I would say, almost as consistent as Reef, especially those games Stephon Diggs missed. Everybody knew the ball was coming to him, and he still found a way to make plays, especially with a quarterback who is not often the most accurate. Very, very impressed with the extra step he's taken this year.
Sean?
I'm going with Case. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going with Riley Reef as well.
I got excited, man.
Hey.
I got excited. All right, you have anything to add on that, or should I give?
I don't.
Okay.
He's a true anchor of the line. He brings a mentality, a blue-collar mentality to this team, which I love seeing out of the offensive line.
All right, so I actually, before I give mine, I'm a little disappointed that no one said Case Keenum because, BJ, if you're going by your value argument, which I agree, right? Yep. Most valuable player, I kind of look at that as like if you take them away from the team, what happens, right? So Sam goes down in game 1 and Case Keenum isn't there. Where is this team at right now? So even though I'm not Team Case and I'm talking about installing Bridgewater as soon as possible because he's been average, I still think with his average play, it's been valuable to this offense, and I think we should applaud what he's done to this point. So, okay,
argument.
With that being said, he's not my pick. Riley Reef is also my pick.
What?
Well, I mean, I look, you can't argue against Riley Reef. One of 3 left tackles with 150-plus pass blocking snaps and no sacks allowed. So that was from Nathan Jenke with PFF. I think that was how you pronounce his last name. So he's my pick too, man. I mean, you can't even talk about how big of a difference having a competent left tackle has been for this team. So
man, Ham used to be my brand. Now everybody else went offensive line, and I didn't.
Hey man, it wasn't just your brand.
Yeah, that's true. It was our brand.
There.
You were there.
All right, BJ, defensive MVP.
I think everyone wants to go with Everson Griffin here, but I'm going to stick with Harrison Smith. I just think, going off of what Brett just said, if you take Harrison Smith off the field, Vikings are in real trouble. If you take Everson Griffin off the field, you can at least plug Danielle Hunter in his role and have Brian Robinson off the bench to fill that void. So, there's so many options here. You can pick Harrison Smith, you can pick Everson Griffin, you can pick Anthony Barr if you want. You can pick Xavier Rhodes, who has shut down one side of the field. You can't go wrong here, but Harrison Smith for me does the most for the Vikings, so he's my pick.
Drew.
I have Harrison Smith too, and it's for all the reasons he said. I think he does so many things. Like he essentially plays three positions out there. If you you can plug him in at linebacker. He'll do the same role, set the edge in the run game, and he can play center field. He can play in the box as a safety. He does so many things, and I think he sets the tone for what the Vikings do. I think Linval Joseph is a good pick too, because I feel like Smith and Joseph are the main guys that allow, Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, Anthony Barr, these other guys to make the plays they do and to kind of get the praise they do. So I would give Smith and Joseph my top two votes, I guess, but Harrison Smith takes it for me.
Sean, I'm going to go the other way next time, okay? So go ahead, Sam, and then...
whatever.
Tough. I think there are 6 players that you could make a legitimate case for. Everson Griffin, I don't know that he's a lot better than he was last year or in years past. He's racking up more sacks, I think, just because of how balanced that line is and a lot of Danielle Hunter taking a next step. But he's obviously been phenomenal. But I would go with Xavier Rhodes. I mean, Harrison Smith is a great one, too. Linval Joseph would be a great answer. I just go Xavier Rhodes because I think in a passing league like it is, having that one corner that can take away that top flight, that superstar that so many teams have is just so valuable.
I can't believe I was getting a little upset that nobody had even said his name until you just said it.
I think BJ did.
Who?
I don't think he did. I was listening for it.
Didn't you mention it?
He said it. He definitely said it.
No, you didn't.
You weren't listening for it, were you?
Someone in the chat backed me up here. And
am I getting killed for my Lions thing in the chat? I haven't even checked. I got to look. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
All right, Sean.
I said Linval Joseph because, it all happens in the trenches. He's been hungry this year. He's got 34 tackles, 2.5 sacks. He's been the anchor of the defensive line. But I also really like another player who's been very quiet this year, as usual, Eric Kendricks, leading the team in tackles, 61 tackles, a sack to throw in. So this whole defense has just been phenomenal. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. All the names we just dropped, like all the different possibilities we have for defensive MVP on this team. Mine is Xavier Rhodes as well. Same thing, BJ, as we were saying before. I think about what happens if you take Xavier Rhodes away from that secondary and the ripple effect it has across the board. I think that's. I think that hurts the defense more than losing Harrison Smith just slightly.
I disagree.
Well, that makes Trey Waynes your number one corner.
Right,
I mean,
and I'm a Trey Waynes fan, but I'm saying
makes Anthony Harris your box safety.
True. Yeah, no winners in these situations.
No, dude. Anytime you lose a starter, you're screwed. I mean, I agree with Brett's argument that Xavier Rhodes. I just think it affects
more people on the field downstream, more directly than plugging someone in. There isn't a definitive answer here. Yes, there is. It's I just gave it to you. What are you talking about?
I think if you would talk to a coach, they would tell you Harrison Smith does so many things on the field that allow the other players to do what they do.
Right. Same can be said about Linval Joseph as well, who I'm glad Sean brought him up because he probably doesn't get enough love. He gets lost in everything else that goes on in the Vikings defense that's so great. What's so much fun here, and I think Brett just made this point, is that there are so many different candidates here, and it's subjective. You can pick, you pick your poison. If you take one of these guys, shut up, you guys. You can make an argument for anyone on the field.
Wait,
We're not doing
what
anything,
was
man.
the shut up about?
Sean did a funny sticker, and we were laughing at that.
All
See,
right.
look,
I was
that's
just like, I'm going like, yeah, listen to this guy. He's right.
I was trying not to laugh, and then finally.
The stickers need to be tasteful and well used, okay? I don't want you guys spamming the stickers.
That's what I was doing.
I thought I used it.
See, damn it, Sam. All right. I am. All right.
Oh, I want pizza now.
Going off the rails. All right. That wraps up defensive MVP. I had Rookie of the Year, and we were kind of talking about this before the show. I think you have to say Pat Elflein because it would have been Dalvin Cook, obviously, but out of the other rookies, I don't really think an argument can be made for Ben Gedeon over Pat Elflein. So, unless anyone disagrees with me, I'm going to surprise you with a award that wasn't on the list and put you on the spot. Is that cool? Good. Anyone disagree? All right. So I'm going to go with the Unsung Hero Award. So we kind of already talked about it a little bit. I think it's come up for, a couple times in the process of giving out other awards. But this is the guy that, is on the team that you never talk about, but without him, it'd be a big loss. Sean. Surprise. I got you first with the surprise award. Unsung Hero.
I've got a guy. I mean, unfortunately, he missed. We actually talked about it in Slack. He was out, in the Cleveland game, the first series. But Mike Remmers, what a year he's been having. I think he's been very undervalued as far as, a somewhat cheap free agent pickup who's turned out to be, pretty much a cornerstone right tackle. So it's been nice to see him shore down the right-hand side. And I think he's a great pick for that award.
Hasn't allowed a sack this season. Insane. All right, Sam?
I would go with the guy that Sean brought up at his MVP discussion, Eric Kendricks. He is just – I even thought about bringing up his name for MVP because it'd be the contrarian thing to do, but he is just so solid. He's taken another step forward this season. He never screws up, and he makes plays. Very, very important to have that guy as a linebacker alongside Anthony Barr, who does a lot more is employed or deployed in more different ways. But having that solid linebacker next to him, I think, makes that possible. So Eric Kendricks for me.
All right, Drew?
Do we have to pick a player?
Ooh,
yes,
George
because
Stewart.
My answer is not a player, and I wanted that to be the twist.
Okay. I hope I take yours then. I am picking Pat Shurmur.
Oh, you're good.
Offensive coordinator.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Pat
That
Shurmur.
is beautiful.
What a season he's had. I mean, it helps that he has an offensive line at his disposal and he's not forcing the ball out after 2 seconds. But he's made Case Keenum a winnable quarterback. He's made this offense very productive with Case Keenum at quarterback. I mean, they've scored now, 33 points against the Browns, 24 against the Ravens, 23 against the Packers. They're scoring that. They're beating that 20-point threshold every single week. And, a lot of that, I think, goes, to credit. The credit goes to Pat Shurmur. I do think he runs way too many screens, and that's got to stop. But that's my one criticism for Pat Shurmur. I think he's done a tremendous job, especially utilizing, moving Thielen into the slot, letting him take advantage of mismatches there. He's been really, really good, and he has impressed me and exceeded expectations I had for him.
Why do we suck at screens?
Because he run too much.
Is that the reason?
Yeah,
I think it's become somewhat predictable.
Okay.
That's kind of my short answer.
All right, BJ, Unsung Hero. Everyone in the chat supposedly knows who it is or something.
I mean, you guys should know the answer to this. I'm going with Trey Waynes, and I like Mike Remmers. That was a really good pick in my opinion. Honestly, Pat Shurmur, bringing him in discussion was great, and Eric Kendricks. I mean, honestly, I love the pick, but he might be above this in my opinion. That's the only reason why. He is a guy that I think that you could pick in either of these last two categories here. So I'm going with Trey Waynes, and here's why. Extremely efficient tackler, maybe the best tackling defensive back the Vikings have. Xavier Rhodes has been very good as well, but Trey Waynes has kept everything in front of him. So, next here, he's moved into the number 2 cornerback role, and I don't care what you guys say, he's played pretty well, especially over the last 4 weeks here. Xavier Rhodes is going to shut down one half of the field. Trey Waynes' job is basically to limit everything around him. He has done that, in my opinion. So, and the reason why, ultimately, why he's the unsung hero here is because none of you guys sing his praises when he does anything right. He was absolutely lights out against Cleveland, and nobody likes to sing Trey Waynes' praises. They only like to yell about him. So he is the unsung hero, in my opinion, because he has done so much more for this defense this year, stepped up in a much bigger way than a lot of you guys have given him credit for, and that's why he's my pick here.
I've been trying to stop the Trey Waynes hate train forever, man. But that thing just keeps on rolling. You can't stop it. I don't know why.
He's got. I mean, people. I said that. I can't remember where I said this, but I said this recently that people are just irritable with Trey Waynes. Anytime someone catches a pass on him, anytime, whether it's not that, like he caught a comeback last week in London or 2 weeks ago in London, and it was a play where he actually was in pretty good position, and it was only like an 8-yard gain or something like that, and everyone was like, "Well, drink. Trey Waynes allowed another reception." It's like, dude, he's going to allow 50% of catches almost no matter what. That's just what happens with cornerbacks. I think he had 6 targets and 2 receptions allowed last week. Get on the Trey Waynes train, guys. Like, he's not that bad. He's doing a solid job. He is my unsung hero, period. Drop the mic.
I can't argue with that, and you know, I'm going to save that for later. I had something about Trey Waynes, but I'll save it for later. Okay, most improved player, Sean.
For this, I guess it's a little unfair to pick him, but I'm going to go Jerick McKinnon. He had a down year last year behind, you know, an inferior offensive line. You know, with a better offensive line, he's really been shining. So it's been fun to see. I feel like he's been the most improved since last year.
Let me ask you this, because I actually had him for mine, but I might try and come up with another one because I had written a couple people down. My one, you know, pause with him was something you mentioned. Has he improved that much, or has the offensive line improved? Because some people contended, since Jerick McKinnon's been on the team, you know, there's been a lot of people saying, well, Jerick McKinnon's awful. Jerick McKinnon's awful. Matt Asiata's awful, right? And I've been sitting here saying all along, and Sam's been sitting here all along and saying, hey, put a competent offensive line in front of these guys before you trash them too much, and then let's talk about it. So do you think that Jerick McKinnon has taken a big step forward, or do you think the offensive line has taken a big step forward?
I mean, I personally think that they both have. I think McKinnon, he added weight. You know, he's more of a north-south runner. At least he's trying to be. So I feel like both have. You know, I can't really single out McKinnon. I don't know how much better he's gotten exactly, but I know his stats have gotten better, and he seems to be breaking more tackles.
Yeah, I think that weight, putting on that weight, definitely helped with that, because it
falls forward a lot more now.
Finishing runs, man.
Yeah, that's the difference for me. Is he's finishing runs now.
Yeah. Okay, cool, man. Sam.
Thielen. Just he had a nice year last year, but he has transformed himself into a top 10 legitimate receiver in the NFL.
Top 10.
Yep.
That's not a hot take.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
1,200 yards.
At least this season, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Drew.
I feel like I can't believe this guy hasn't been mentioned yet. I think it's a pretty obvious choice here, Anthony Barr.
That's what I was going to pick. Yeah.
I mean,
over last year for sure.
Yeah,
that's what this is about, right?
Well, yeah, go ahead. It's different for me when this player has achieved that level before and then maybe had a down year.
He's better than 2015 Barr.
Yeah, okay.
He's better than 2015 Barr right now. I think that Ravens game was. I think it was the Ravens game. Yeah, it was the Ravens game. That was his best game as a pro, I think, by far. And that includes the game where he had the strip and the fumble recovery and the touchdown against the Bucs to win in overtime his rookie season. Dude's been phenomenal, and I think he is in the all-pro discussion, in my opinion. I think he's been that good. And obviously, again, credit goes to the other parts of the defense for, I guess, giving the opportunities, like I said, Linval Joseph and Harrison Smith, excuse me. But I think Anthony Barr and what he's been asked to do has been phenomenal, especially at not missing tackles, like allowing catches for like 2 yards, right? Making the tackle immediately and not letting the play exceed what it should be. His coverage has been very good. He obviously has the speed, gets into the flat, gets the running back, brings him down. I think that's what he's been the best at, and I think that was something he lacked at last year.
All right, BJ.
Well, I think that you can list a lot of different players here as well. Honestly, the ones that have already been listed, I think, are very good choices. I think you can go with any of those guys. But I'm just going to double down here and say Trey Waynes. I mean, yeah. I supported this case in the last argument I just made. But I mean, think about this. He's stepping into a role where he's going to be targeted probably 10 times per game. because that's just how good Xavier Rhodes is. It's a reflection on him as well. You can make a case for Xavier, honestly, being that much more improved from last season as well. But I'm going to go with Waynes. I'm going to stick with him. I'm fine with Mackenzie Alexander here as well because I think he's taking great strides. But with Waynes, man, I mean, stepping into a number 2 cornerback role in a primarily man defensive scheme where he's asked to do a lot of different things in coverage, I'm really impressed, you guys. I don't care that he beat Cleveland last week. I mean, someone found a way to break coverage against Xavier Rhodes last week, and it didn't happen against Waynes. So I've been quietly very impressed with his ascension to being a more capable number 2 cornerback. And I really think that at this point we can only expect him to improve moving forward too. So Trey Waynes, 2 times.
My most improved was Jerick McKinnon. Sean already kind of talked about that. So instead I'm going to go back because I didn't give my unsung hero, and I wanted to give my unsung hero. I kind of cheated. For this one, I wanted to sing the praises of Rick Spielman because I do not think we have talked about that enough this year. And the reason I want to do that is because he has fixed the offensive line for right now. Obviously, there may be some depth issues. But he has done an exceptional job at fixing this O-line. Hands down, the biggest weakness on this team has now become a strength. Only one team has allowed less sacks than the Vikings in the NFL. That's Vikings at 10 and the Saints are at 8. The 2016 Vikings allowed 4 times more sacks in 2016. If you kind of prorate how many we've allowed this year. We almost allowed 40 in 2016. And Mike Rimmers, as I said earlier, is also not allowed a sack this season. So those 2 free agency installs have been huge for this team, and I think that makes Rick Spielman my unsung hero. All right, final award is the Rising Star Award. This is somebody who's primed to take the next step and be a superstar in the near future. Somebody we're going to be talking about as an elite player next year, maybe adding him to that group of already elite players on this Vikings team. So I'm going to go back up top to BJ now since I started with Sean for a couple here. BJ, it looked like you may be ill-prepared for this question. Are you ready?
Trey Waynes.
No, I'm never not prepared.
My bad, man. I didn't mean to suggest that that either.
Yeah, don't ever do that again.
How dare you?
Look at that mustache. That mustache
screams preparation.
Screams prepared. Yeah.
Adam Thielen is the answer here. Period. And I mean, how much evidence do I need to give to support this claim? The guy has been phenomenal. He's really the one player, in my opinion, that has really gone from being on the cusp of stardom to pushing into that territory this year. You can make an argument for guys like Anthony Barr. I think guys like Xavier Rhodes, Everson Griffin, Harrison Smith were already stars. So for me, the answer here is pretty simple. I think that Adam Thielen is the one guy here on this team that really has ascended to that superstar level at the receiver position.
I think.
Wait, but so he's already done it. Wasn't the question a guy who's poised to do it?
But had he done it coming into this? I mean, is he a superstar right now?
He's not a superstar right now.
Right.
He doesn't have the name recognition.
I'm with you.
Superstar.
I'm with you.
Right. So my opinion of him is simply that he's still on his way up and he's going to get there. He's the safest pick. I'm cheating a little bit here. I'm taking the safest option.
It's great news for the Vikings too because guess who's under contract until 2021? He's as BJ's saying, he's becoming a rising star and he's locked into the Vikings for the next 4 years. So that's pretty awesome. All right, Drew.
I had Thielen and I was cucked. So, all right, I'll stick with Thielen because I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. For all the reasons BJ said, I also would like to announce that not correctly, that's not correct yet, but I predicted 1,200 yards before the season. I predicted 1,200 yards before the season.
Drew, how many times have you brought that up?
And how many times have I told you? How many times have I told you, Drew? I'm going to bring that up at the end of this episode. You just can't help yourself.
No, I can't. I can't.
That was
you guys all laughed hard at me when I said that.
No, we did not. I went back and watched the episode today. Nobody laughed at you. Nobody laughed. Go back and watch it. All right, Sam.
Still impressive. That's a lot of yards. That's a lot of yards that he will end up with. So that's still impressive. I approached it a little differently. I was picked a guy really I felt on the come up who I think will be a star relative to how centers can be stars. Pat Elflein. I just think he's stepped in and played tremendous as a rookie, all things considered.
That's a good pick.
And think he's going to be a really good player for the Vikings for the next decade.
All right, Sean.
First of all, yeah, that's a great pick, Sam. I've got a pretty good one too. When in the
We'll be the judges of that.
in my opinion, yeah, that's true. When in the app are people going to recognize Eric Kendricks as the amazing player that he is? Yeah, he missed a couple tackles earlier in the year. Whatever, he's past that. I mean, like I said, he's leading the team in tackles, and I think he's one of the most underrated players on the team. Continuously,
I like it.
He will not get recognized.
It has been judged fairly.
He never screws up.
My Rising Star Award is going to go to somebody that we've already talked about a lot. That's Trey Waynes. I think next season you'll be talking about the cornerback tandem in Minnesota with Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes. From a Vikings.com article, I'm not sure if Lindsay wrote this one. To shout out to Lindsay if she did write it. Among cornerbacks who played 50% of their team snaps, Waynes is the fourth most targeted in the league with 56 passes thrown his way. That's the Xavier Rhodes effect. He's surrendered 36 completions for 435 yards and has the same number of interceptions as touchdowns allowed. That's 2. In addition, Wayne leads all corners with 50% of snaps played in run stops, and he's just missed 1 tackle all season. So it's time. If you are still on the I hate Trey Waynes train, it's time to ask the conductor to slow it down so you can step off and get off that train and start getting behind Trey Waynes, because he's taken a huge step in the right direction this season. And I think next year we're going to be talking about him as a major piece in the Viking secondary.
And the conductor of that train is Don from Ohio, yes?
It might be. Yeah. You know what, though? I think he runs shifts between that train and the Laquan Treadwell train.
Oh, God.
I'm not sure
he does.
which train he's...
Train.
Yeah. All right. We're moving on to our last segment. I know this is running long, but whatever. It's a mid-season show. It's fun. We've handed out some cool awards. So, bold predictions. I want to update first on the... We're going to go around the table, and I'm going to update on our preseason predictions that we've made, and then I'm going to get a bold prediction from you for the rest of this season. So I'm going to start with you, BJ, because it's at the top of my list. Your prediction was Dalvin Cook will have 1,500 all-purpose yards, 1,200 rushing, and 300 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. This is awesome, man. Look, I'm going to still give this one to you, because if Dalvin Cook did not go down, through 4 games, he had 354 rushing yards, 90 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Guess what that puts him on pace for? 1,400 rushing yards, 360 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns, which is close to 1,800 all-purpose yards. So I think you deserve a hat tip for that one. If it wasn't due to the injury, I think you would have knocked that one out of the park. So with all that being said, what's your new prediction?
Oh boy, I'm gonna.
And then
I'll go
put
with
that person in a padded room so they can't be hurt.
I'll go with 0 touchdowns allowed for Xavier Rhodes all season long. I think that he's proven already this year that he is an elite cornerback. He's in the top 5 conversation. For me, he's a top 2-ish cornerback. He hasn't allowed a touchdown yet. I don't see any reason that that's going to happen in the near future here. You look at a couple of the situations on tap. Kirk Cousins is going to be a challenge. I don't know if he's going to cover Josh Jackson or Terrell Pryor. It could happen It could happen next week, but I feel like Xavier Rhodes is a strong candidate to allow 0 touchdowns all year long. That'll be my bold prediction moving forward here, since Dalvin Cook, unfortunately, is hurt and not able to realize my dream for him.
Yeah. All right, Drew. I guess I'll start off with, I guess you made a bold prediction on the last show or something. It had something to do with Adam Thielen. I'm not sure if you want to tell people about it or.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
so
it? It was like you said he was going to go for 1,200 yards.
I predicted 1,200 yards for Adam Thielen this season, and nobody agreed with me. You guys all laughed at me.
You know what was funny, though? I went back and watched the show, and you know what was funny about your prediction is after your prediction, we talked about the skull scale and how your skull scale got bumped a whole half a point because of the addition of Tremaine Brock. That was pretty funny. I didn't laugh at you for the Thielen prediction, but I kind of laughed about the Tremaine Brock part.
Yeah, that the Brock thing didn't happen.
Yeah. Anyway, you killed your preseason prediction. So let's get us with.
Well, I haven't. Yeah, we're half. You know.
Oh, that's
midway.
True. Huh? I guess I'm kind of assuming it's a done deal. All right. Well, what's a new prediction?
I'm gonna stick with Thielen here. I'm gonna say he catches 110 balls this season. I think he's at 48 right now, which would put him on pace for 96. I think that number. I think he gets higher efficiency here per game. Especially with Diggs healthy, I think that's only going to increase his production.
All right, now since you're upping your Thielen prediction, you're doubling down on it, as us Vegas folk would say. What's you got to update your receiving yard prediction then, man. If you're
Okay.
upping the reception prediction, go ahead and up the receiving yard prediction. Just go for it.
I'll say 1,300 because
Right,
I think
enough.
the role he plays is more of a slot receiver, possession guy, chain mover. That and I think that inherently kind of is not much of a big time yards role. So
What about touchdowns? He's only had I think one touchdown this season. Do you see that number going up in the second half? Because I saw that and I kind of thought it was low.
probably. I mean, it probably will. I think that's more of an anomaly that he only had one,
Yeah,
and it was
that's
only
true.
he didn't have one the first 7 games, which I think was just weird. And Diggs had like 4 in the first 3 games, so I don't know. I think it's more of an anomaly than anything.
All right, Sean. I'm sorry, Sam.
Since Austin's not here, I'm going to represent his prediction. Not the crappy ones he made. The one that actually came true about Aaron Rodgers being injured. I don't know how he predicted that, but that was pretty impressive.
Too soon.
I'm sorry.
No,
Too
it's
soon.
not too soon.
Too much. So I will double down, as you Vegas folks would say, and say that Matthew Stafford will be injured, thus rendering my Lions take moot.
Yes.
Oh man, predicting
We are
more
cruel
injuries here at
That is cruel.
VikingsTerritory.com. Yes.
We'll see how much control we really have.
You were singing the praises of Austin. I think it's only fair that we call him out for his other takes since you brought him up.
Got you.
I think it was something like Teddy Bridgewater never plays another down in Minnesota, I think was his bold prediction in that episode.
Doesn't
Hey,
he-
so far so good.
Not wrong
Yeah,
yet.
so far.
So far so good.
That's true. That's true. And then he had another one where he talked about us getting beat by the Giants in the NFC Championship. So
Seems unlikely.
yeah. So all right, we love you, Austin. Sean, go ahead and give us your bold prediction. You didn't have one. You actually weren't on that episode, so
Oh, really?
you weren't.
Huh.
Maybe you
I thought I
dreamed it.
remembered seeing something about Treadwell having.
I wasn't.
Oh well, if it was about Treadwell, then let's not talk about that bold prediction. Unless it was a bold prediction that he would have like what he's doing right now, but I don't think that would have been bold. So
Hey, no, if you would have said Treadwell's gonna have a career season, then you'd have been right.
It's true.
Well, I pretty much did.
Okay.
Yeah,
There
so
you
you're right. Okay, there you go.
go. 1 for 1, Sean.
Nailed it.
What's
He
number
already
2?
he already has the career season after 8 games. He already got it.
True, yep. But I'm going to stick with him. He's not done yet. My prediction is that he's going to have 600 yards, 6 touchdowns by the end of the year. He's going to take hold of that 3rd wide receiver
How many
spot.
touchdowns does he have right now? 0?
Yeah, hold on. Let's
No.
look this up.
Done.
So he's gonna have 6 in the final 8 weeks. I love that.
He's going to go on a tear.
It's a bold take
bold.
statement, right?
So
I better
right
add him
now
on
he's at 142 yards and 0 touchdowns, and you predicted what?
600 yards, 6 touchdowns.
So about 450 yards and 6 more touchdowns in the set. The touchdown one is the big one. I mean, both of them are big. I don't see either of them happening, but I guess that's why it's bold.
I gotta add Treadwell on fantasy right now.
Yeah,
You
go do
should.
that.
Yeah.
6
Great
touchdowns in
idea.
8 games. I mean,
Watch out, guys.
I didn't have any bold predictions in that show because I managed to to dodge that one.
I'm looking at the chat here. We got a bold prediction from Bradley Callies. He's a big Beavers fan, like all of us. But he's a big fan of Willie Beavers as well, and he would like to make the prediction that Beavers is awesome. So I wanted to throw that one out there, just because Willie Beavers is back in a Minnesota Vikings uniform, and man, I could not be more
We
excited.
glossed over that piece of news at the beginning. I don't know how we missed that one. All right, my bold prediction was that Danielle Hunter is going to have 10 sacks in the second half of this season. I think we built him up so much, and it's been disappointing thus far, his performance. I guess it really hasn't been disappointing, but I mean, from like a box score standpoint, it's been a little disappointing. But I think he's getting close, and I just feel like it's going to level out a little bit here, and I think he's going to start to get some of those sacks in the second half of the year. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I see Danielle Hunter getting 10 sacks in the second half of the season. I think he has, how many right now? One? So I think it's 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this show. Want to thank you again for taking some time out of your day to sit around with us and watch us talk for over an hour now about the Vikings. Next time you see us, we're going to be talking about the Redskins game. So please make sure to subscribe. A little YouTube pro tip: if you click that little bell icon after you subscribe, you'll get notifications as soon as things are posted. That means you're going to get updates as soon as About the Labor goes live or an About the Labor show is posted. About the Labor is like this really good Vikings podcast. I'm not sure if you've heard about it. Drew and DJ do an awesome job. And then you also will get notified when Sam decides to bless us with a bump and run. Is there a bump and run coming this week, Sam? Or
yes.
no?
No, we're off. We're off for the bye week.
You're off for the bye week. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Rest up, get rested, get ready for the next one. The last one was pretty epic. If you go back and watched it, I was called out, subtweeted multiple times throughout that episode.
No, you were the only one who wasn't.
Whatever. All right, guys, like, share the video, share with everyone you know, comments, all that jazz, and we will see you back here soon. Thanks again. Adios.